Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of Morning Learnings. In the evening, I think, in Australia. But I'm absolutely delighted this morning to welcome Leanne Pilkington to the podcast. I've been trying to get Leanne for a long time. I don't think she realises this. But I've got many Australian friends: Steve Carroll, Sam McLean, Troy Malcolm, and they've been trying to help me get you on, and eventually we got there in the end. So,
well, you've got some awesome friends.
I have, and I've been over to Australia. I've been to Eric. I've been following you from a distance. I listen to your courageous conversations.
Really?
Your podcast with elite agent. So, Leanne, I know you're the Chief Executive Officer and Director of Laing+Simmons. Mm-hmm. I know you've had just a few years in the property industry in Australia. You've done a hell of a lot. So I'd just like to unpick all your learnings. But firstly, welcome and thank you for your time.
Me. Yes, and it's 7 o'clock on a Friday night. So you're lucky to get me.
Well, I'm incredibly grateful. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So and we got good morning, Angela. Thanks very much for tuning in this morning. Appreciate it. So tell us how you got into real estate in the first place and how you ended up being CEO of a prestigious company.
That's a really long. That's a long conversation. But my father, who actually sadly passed this week, was a real estate agent, and I started working for Dad as a 12-year-old. So would you believe next year will mark 50 years since I started in real estate as a 12-year-old. And I started answering the phone for him on a weekend. And then when I left school, he said, look, while you're waiting to go to university, can you come work for me? And so I did. And then I stayed working for him for until I was maybe 26 or 27. So started as receptionist, property manager, then sales, and kind of went on from there. So when I left Dad, I did shopping centre management. I did some property development, and I've actually been with Laing+Simmons now for 28 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I know, such a long time, but we've had 4 different ownership groups in that time. So it's really, even though it's 28 years in one business, it's kind of like 4 different jobs. And I actually organised a buyout from the previous owners just 2.5 years ago. So after being in the business since 1995, 2.5 years ago, I just went, you know what, I've had enough. I'm going to actually, I'm gonna own it myself. So that's what I did, and it's been a phenomenal ride since then. We've done more change in the last 2.5 years than I did in the 10 years prior. So it's been incredible.
Good. Well, I watched Lux listings, and so I got a whiff of what was going on and the changes.
My very good friend and business partner, Delaney Lewis, she's a phenomenal person.
So I saw that. Firstly, sorry for your loss this week.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a tough week, but anyway, that's
so let's talk about change then, and actually talk about culture. So how do you manage to change that culture in your business? How do you get the right culture in your business in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I first, back in 1995, when I first started at Laing+Simmons, I was a shopping centre manager and a building manager, so doing both retail and commercial. And I had it was a toxic workplace. I was getting paid really well, but I just couldn't do it anymore. I just didn't want to be there. And so I thought, okay, it's time for a nice job. I can take a step back in salary if I am in a really happy environment. And so I got offered the job at Laing+Simmons, and I thought I was working for a very old friend of mine, and I thought it was going to be beautiful. But I got there and I realised that the franchisees hated each other, and they hated head office corporate. And I said to my friend who employed me, we've got 2 choices. Either we change the culture or or I go and get another job because I just can't do this again. So we decided that we would go about changing the culture, and we did that. Firstly, we sort of did some surveys to try and get to the bottom of what the issues were, but I knew in my heart that these people would actually get on with each other if they were put in the right environment. And being Australian, I'm a very big believer in the bonding ability of beer. And so we organised a number of functions, smaller functions and boardroom lunches that was sort of a lunch and learn kind of environment, bearing in mind it was the 90s, so it was a different world than it is now. And slowly but surely, we changed the culture. We celebrated the wins. Our events became massive parties. And that's not to say that they were inappropriate, but they were massive celebrations, right? And it just started to slowly but surely break down the barriers. We started having annual conferences and doing all of that sort of stuff that is kind of commonplace now, but in the 90s it was not. And so eventually we changed the culture, and now I'm really particular about who I allow to have the Laing+Simmons brand. I'm not about dots on maps. I'm not about maximizing revenue and having the high income producers only in the business. I want people that share our values, and that's incredibly important.
So can I ask you, what are your values, please?
Yeah, absolutely. We believe in going beyond. We go beyond as far as our customer service, our support of each other. We go beyond just training to developing our people. We celebrate each other's successes, and those things are really, and we do what we say we're going to do, and we have fun.
Sounds brilliant. Where can I
Yeah.
start?
Anytime, my friend, anytime. Come on over.
So, God, there's loads of amazing things there. And actually, one of the things that I wanted to discuss, and you talk about supporting your colleagues,
Yep.
and I came across, you've got an employee assistance program
Absolutely.
for your team members. So what exactly does that look like, and how did that come about?
So I've been involved in a charity called Sister to Sister for more than a decade now, and that kind of made me realise how much anxiety and depression and issues there were out in the world. I hadn't been exposed. I mean, it sounds ridiculous now, but again, think about it. Back then, it wasn't as much. Post-COVID, it's a different conversation, but before, it wasn't really as much in my mind. But my experience with Sister to Sister, which is a mentoring program for teenage girls with complex challenges, and I met some incredible counsellors during my time. Well, I'm actually the chair of that charity now. So during my early years with Sister to Sister, I met some incredible counsellors, and I thought, you know what? I would love my Laing+Simmons people to have access to these conversations, right? And whilst it's more common now, in those days, nobody was providing those sort of support. So everybody at Laing+Simmons and everybody related to somebody at Laing+Simmons have got access to 3 counselling sessions that we will pay for, and they don't have to tell us that they're accessing it. They just make the phone call, and that support is there. And I've heard back from people that have utilised it, and they've said it's literally life-changing. So yeah, it's there for whatever their challenges are, and even if it's for their husband or wives or their children or mums, and it doesn't matter who it is, so long as they've got some connection to Laing+Simmons, they're welcome to use it.
That's amazing. So about 3 years ago, I was involved, became a founder member of Agents Together, and we set up a mentoring scheme to help all UK estate agents out there. And so far, I think we've got well over, I'm going to be corrected now by Sam Offley and Sarah Edmondson, but well over 400 mentors that have volunteered, and we've helped
Fantastic.
well over 900 mentees as well. And people
Amazing.
give up their time, which is absolutely incredible. So it's fantastic to see what you're doing in your own business.
Thank you. Yeah, we launched a mentoring program within Laing+Simmons as well, and it's a passion project for my head of HR and people and culture. Sorry, is the appropriate term. My head of people and culture, Jackie Barnes. She is passionate about all of this stuff, and what she does with the mentoring program is that we do a lot of profiling at Laing+Simmons. And we match people on their personality profiles and their values rather than just their skill set. We want people that are going to really resonate with each other. And we've had some incredible results with that program as well. So, yeah, we're all about doing whatever we can to support our people to get to the next stage of their career, whatever that looks like for them. In real estate, people are really keen to talk about the high income producers, and it's not just about that. It's about what's important to you. What does success look like for you? And I'm really passionate about that because you look at Lux listings and $1 million listings and those sorts of shows, and it's all about the hustle and the big numbers, but that's not necessarily everybody's story or everybody's journey. So I want to be able to support people in what's important to them.
Fantastic. I think it's absolutely amazing. So coming back, you talked about going beyond. So
Yep.
what does that look like to you and your customers?
Well, for me, I mean, it's interesting. If you think about, like, I think about when I bought, the first time I bought a car with heated seats. Now, yes, we're in Australia. You wouldn't think we would need them, but we get chilly in winter, right? Even in Sydney. And the first time I bought a car with a heated seat, I went, oh, wow, how long has this been going on? This is awesome. I am never buying another car without a heated seat again. I might sound really spoiled. However, literally, that is now what was once a wow is now a basic expectation for me. And I think that it's really important for all of us to kind of bear that in mind, because that our basic expectations are changing and growing all of the time. So we need to be really clear on what a wow is and what the basic expectations are. And we do a lot of surveys within Laing+Simmons, particularly. So my clients are the real estate agents that work for the brand, the business owners and their teams. And so I'm constantly asking them what they need from me, what they've liked, what we could do better, what are the conversations we should be having that we're not. And so I'm always trying to do more, which is a bit of a challenge sometimes, but it's what I try and do.
I can imagine. So obviously you're the host of this Courageous Conversations on Elite
Yep.
Agent.
Yep.
You have interviewed most probably thousands of people as well.
Yep.
What do you see are the qualities of the top performers out there?
So, firstly, Courageous Conversations I started because I got really tired of hearing all of the positive stories and the how good am I kind of conversations that elite performers tend to have. It's all about the money and it's all about the beating of the chest. And I know that there's challenges behind every success. And so I started Courageous Conversations because it's all about the conversations that you have with others or even yourself that challenge you to go to the next level. So that was my motivation behind starting the podcast. But the really successful people have got a lot in common. They're very determined. They're very focused. They understand that the customer has to be at the center of everything that they do. But they also know that selling real estate is not rocket science. there are some really basic things that we all know that we have to do, and the good ones do it, and they do it relentlessly, and they are committed to doing the relationships. And yes, there's a lot of great stuff going on in AI. Yes, social media is a wonderful thing, but it is a belly-to-belly business. It is about relationships, and those agents that do the relationships well, with the addition of smart tech, are going to outdo those people who just try and rely on technology and social media.
Couldn't agree more. And one of the things that I've learned here is and I don't know what it's like in Australia, but 95% of estate agents in the UK do not have any stay in touch policy. So as soon as a seller ends up selling, or sorry,
my hair out, Stephen. It's the same here.
Okay, so why do you think that is? You know, you talked about there, you know, it's all about building a relationship. And with me, it's how can you get that? How can you get that buyer to be a client for life? How can you get them to recommend you to friends, family, colleagues, and neighbours? You know, rather than most agents see it as a one-off transaction, not this relationship for life.
Yeah, and I was about to say that exact thing. A lot of agents are very transactional, and it is infuriating. And I understand that it's a long-term commitment, because people might, I don't know what the average is in the UK, but people stay a long time in their homes in Australia because our stamp duty is so high. You know, to buy $1 million property, which, you know, you don't get much. You get a 1-bedroom and a study apartment in most parts of Sydney for $1 million, and that's a $40,000 stamp duty bill. And yeah, so it's a very, very expensive transaction to do on a regular basis. So people, I guess, figure it's too hard to stay in touch for that long. But that's where you employ smart technology, right? What you can do with your CRMs today are fabulous.
Okay, well, you talked about smart tech. So what is a smart tech that's working well in Australia at the moment?
Oh God, that's a great question. I'm not going to plug any particular tech because I've got relationships with lots of people. But I would say to you that it's all changing so quickly at the moment. If you have a look at what's happening in AI, if you had a look as I did 6 weeks ago, what I would be told today is completely different. So it's just it's a watching brief. It's having those conversations with the suppliers that you are using and asking the questions. How are you integrating AI into the tech that you have, and what's the roadmap look like for the next 6 months? And if they don't have that, most of the good ones will be able to tell you. But if they can't, then it's time to maybe look around.
So I was on a webinar yesterday with a guy called Jim Quick, who put on a whole training day, and he had an AI guy on there, and he came up with something called Vidya, VIDYA.AI, which was incredible, which chops up all your videos. So this podcast could be chopped up into 20 shorts that can go on all in social media for in less than 30 seconds.
What was it called? I'm going to take a note of that.
VIDYA.AI. And I think it gives you 75 minutes and it chops up all your podcasts. So sadly, because I was trying to get all yesterday, I've used all my minutes. But it was absolutely fantastic. I was like, wow, this is incredible. You know, and the time it saves, you know, with all the editing and stuff like that. You know, I've now got about 50 odd shorts that I can send out on my platforms.
How is that?
And it was just like that. And he came up with 6 or 7 other things as well, which was exceptional. So you're right there. Things are changing
massively.
Really.
And so get it. You know, I don't know whether certainly agents in Australia are playing around with ChatGPT. on a regular basis. And if people that are watching and listening haven't actually started to play with it, then I suggest that you get onto it. It's a heap of fun, and it's pretty amazing at what you can generate. I had to do a keynote address on authentic leadership, and I only had 2 weeks notice, which normally if I'm doing a keynote, I take a lot longer than that to prepare. And I spoke to one of my team members who trains in this sort of stuff, and got some feedback from her. And then I thought, I wonder what ChatGPT would say. And so I put it into ChatGPT, and sure enough, exactly what my teammate had come up with came out in this. It's mind-blowing. It's very cool.
I know, it's incredible. So I just want to come back on something that you said earlier.
Sure.
And you asked the question, what does success look like to you?
Yeah.
I'm going to throw that back to you. What does success look like to Leanne?
Yeah. Great question. Success to me looks like being able to make choices and to be in control and to make. So to give you a little bit of context, one of the things that I do with my corporate team every year is we write a letter to ourselves to be read the following year. So it's almost like a business plan by another name almost. And I started doing it because I've got some admin people who don't have KPIs around numbers like, some of my team do, and they struggled with the business planning. So we started this letter to ourselves thing. And in 2019, I couldn't write that letter to myself. I couldn't see what the future looked like. And for me, that's quite scary. That's not who I am. I'm always moving forward. I'm always making changes. And so I wrote in my letter to myself, I wrote, it's December 2020 and Laing+Simmons has new owners. Because I felt so stuck with the ownership group, who I love. They were fabulous people, but they just couldn't make any decisions. And like I said, I'm the kind of person that needs to be moving forward all the time. And so I then had to call the CEO and say, I think you need to talk to the board and sell us. And my intention was not to be buying the business. That isn't why I did it. I just needed owners that were more forward thinking. And in the end, I put together an ownership group, and I'm now being able to deliver all of the things that I've wanted to deliver into the brand in the last 10 years. So success for me is being able to do that, being able to make choices, being able to take action, being able to move forward, and to keep on doing great stuff. And not everything that you do is going to succeed. And you've got to be okay with that, right? You've got to be, we've got a saying in our corporate team, ooh, that didn't go so well. Let's get curious about how we could have done that differently. And so people have got to feel safe to be able to have those conversations. So that's success for me, being able to make decisions and move forward and take actions and have fun.
How do you get people to take action? Because that's one of the things. There's loads of people out there that are fantastic at taking notes, and then all the notes end up on the shelf
Totally.
and get dusty. But
Yep.
how, for me, the top performers are the implementers.
No doubt about it. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. But I think so I've never actually thought about this question before. But I think you've got to be really clear on who you're employing and why you're employing them and what your expectations are of them. You've got to give them the opportunity. You've got to set them up for success. But you also need to have a balance of people around you. So I'm an ideas person. I'm a big picture person. If you are a disc person, I'm a high D personality. I think fast. I speak fast. I talk to me in bullet points. I don't want the detail. But I need to surround myself with people who have got the detail. So I have the ideas and I have the balls, if you will, to put stuff out there and to make stuff happen. But I don't have the detail around it. So I've got people around me that have got that detail. So we often make the mistake when we're recruiting that we employ people that are like us. And I don't need any more people like me. I'm enough for everybody, trust me. So I need people, I need detailed people, I need, the compliance people, the steady people. You need to be really clear on what your strengths and weaknesses are, and not just hire people who you like because they're like you.
Where'd you get your ideas from?
Well, I do drink. I've got to be honest about that. So sometimes it might be over a Chardonnay, but I go to a lot of industry events. I go to a lot of conferences. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I do a lot of stuff like that. But I also, I've been in the industry a really long time, and I don't know, you can see what we need. You can see you can read the tea leaves. I knew where the industry was going 10 years ago, and for me it's all about centralizing the support. So what's the point of thousands of real estate agencies all doing the same thing? Why not leverage that and get really good compliance people that can work for a whole lot of people, really good customer support people? You know what I mean? You can, all of that centralized support is incredibly important. Property managers, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but certainly our property managers in Australia are massively under pressure, and as a result, wages are going through the roof. Not enough people are coming into the industry. So how do we make the environment better for them? And I think bigger teams looking after, centralizing the support is what we're working on doing right now, and it's it's working. It's working. It's early days, but it's working.
Good. Market's changed. It's changed over here in COVID, and I mean this very respectfully. It was easy. You take a property on, you get 30 odd people wanting to view it, you get 30 offers, you go to best and final bids, the deal was done, and that was it. The market's
And
definitely...
the agents all thought it was them.
I know, incredible.
Delusional.
There's a lot of people that haven't gone through the market we're currently going through now.
Totally. Yep.
Okay, I think you've got somebody in the UK who wants to come out and work for you.
Awesome.
Property manager. Thank you for watching, Sam.
Come on out. Absolutely.
I may get in trouble with your employer. So
yeah, well, that's true. Sorry about that.
so coming back, again, there's a lot of people at the moment that most probably haven't been through a market we're going through.
Totally.
They've come into the industry, within the last 2-3 years. They think, God, this is really, really, really easy. You and I have been through markets like this before. What tips can you give people watching this about how to deal, how to react in this market?
Yeah, so I don't pretend to know what's going on in your market, but I'll give you a snapshot of what's going on in ours. And from what I've seen, they're kind of it's actually the first time in my career that markets around the world seem to be behaving in very similar ways, and I've not seen that. I've not seen that before, but certainly in Australia, massive highs, price hikes in during COVID. And then it fell away a little bit, and now prices are rising in Australia again, particularly in Sydney, where I'm based. One of the challenges, but they're not. So if you had have sold in COVID, you would have earned more money than now. But there are still a lot of buyers around. Mortgage rates are going up consistently over here as well. And I would say that the biggest thing that I'm seeing that agents are not doing is having the pricing conversations early. And so vendors need to understand, you need to have your stats, right? You need to be able to say to the vendor, okay, 70, whatever the numbers are for you, 75% of our properties are sold to people who see the property within the first 2 weeks of the campaign. So one of the things that vendors always do, hey, we got our asking price in week 2, maybe we better hang on because we don't want to sell it too cheap. And so I think that you need to be really clear on your stats and be comfortable in having those conversations with your vendors. And don't hide behind bloody emails. Pick up the phone and have a conversation with people. Understand how people want to be communicated with and how frequently. Some people want to hear from you every day. Some people are fine to have a written report once a week. Whatever it is, I'm not here to tell you what you need to do in that regard, but I am here to say, speak to your client. Speak to your client, understand how they want to be communicated with and how frequently, all of that sort of stuff, and then deliver on that for them.
100%. So Sandy's come back and says she's her own boss, so she's on that plane. So you're okay.
Awesome. Looking forward to meeting you, Sandy.
So a couple of final questions because I'm grateful and appreciate your time, and it's getting late and you want that Chardonnay. So I know you've established a women's real estate networking group.
Sure.
And I know in the UK now we've got women in residential property, which Nicola Bruman has now just become the chair. And we've got women in the estate agency group that.
Well, I will look forward to an invitation to come over and meet with them at some stage.
Well, there you go. So Women in the Estate Agency Group had their first conference last year. It's gone from a Facebook group just of a few people to over 3,000 people now.
That's awesome. I love that.
Absolutely honoured to be a guest and spoke about my situation and bereavement in March this year, which was incredible. And I know there's a conference coming out in March, so maybe I'll get Verona or Leona and have a conversation with you about it.
Anytime, I would love to do that. We so I was the president of the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales for 4 years. And in that role, I got to host the Women in Real Estate event that we have in Sydney in March of every year. And I still MC that event now, even though I'm no longer president. But I did start a networking group called Real Women in Real Estate back in 2015. And I started it because, I've got to be honest, when I first started selling real estate back in the 80s, there were no women. And so I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to make a big deal about being a woman. I tried to fit in with the boys. I was one of the boys. I would go to the pub with the boys. I just was one of the boys. And so I was never one of those women that sought the support of other women. And in probably about 2013, I had some girls working for me who were like, come on, Leigh, we need to have this. We need to build a group like this. We really need to do it. And they nagged me into it. And I just didn't see the point. Embarrassingly, I didn't see the point. And so in the end, I said, okay, all right, leave it with me, because I've got a lot of connections. I've been around a long time and I know a lot of people. And so I sent an email out to a dozen women that I knew that had female teams and said, look, what do you reckon about getting together, doing some networking, having some champers? And they all said, yeah, sounds good. So within 2 weeks, I sent an email out. 2 weeks later, we had 65 women at the first event. And I stood there and I went, I still don't know what we're doing exactly or what the point of this is, but I can see that it's needed. And so I then went on to do, I think we did, 75 or 80 events around the country in a really short period of time. And then I kind of went, I've got a real job. So I need to probably go back to doing a bit more of that. And so we don't do as many events as we used to, but we've still got events that happen in every state. But I have to say that some of my closest friends I met in that first group back in 2015, and they're the tribe I didn't know I needed until I found them.
Okay, Sandy said she's booked her tickets for next year's Women in the Estate Agency group, and she's looking forward to seeing you there. Come and tag her.
Fantastic.
Okay, so final question. You talked earlier about you're constantly learning and listening to podcasts. Recommendations, please.
Oh, wow. Okay. Podcasts are the next big idea. They've got some really cool topics on that. I love that. I love that podcast. And books. Gosh, have you heard of Zappos, the shoe?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, their book. And you know what? The name of the book has completely left my head. It was written by Tony Hsieh, the late founder of Zappos.
Yeah.
It's all about customer service. That's a fantastic book. Any of Good to Great, any of Jim Collins's work is awesome. Vern Harnish, Scaling Up, awesome. There's so many. I've got a pile of them.
Brilliant. Well, look, I'm really grateful for your time this evening. Have a lovely weekend. If people want to reach you, Leanne, how do they do that, please?
Gosh, I'm on all of the socials, the Leanne Pilkington. So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you want to email me directly, you are absolutely welcome. It's leanne@lsre.com.au.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you for being an amazing guest. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you for everybody getting up early and watching it on your way to work. Really appreciate it. And please share it, like it, get it out there. I love your core values and I love what you've done. I'm going to continue to do so. I'm going to continue following you, listening to those great conversations.
Thank you.
And
maybe you want to come on one with me. Would you like to do a courageous conversation with me, Stephen?
I would love to.
Awesome.
I would love
We'll get onto it.
So I'm going to come off this now and we'll talk offline if that's okay.
Sure.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye.